I'm Bill Auten of Auten Claims Management.
I'm Chantel Roberts of CMR Consulting, and welcome to the Art of Adjusting podcast.
Today, we're going to talk about life as an insurance adjuster from the perspective of property, auto, liability, or workers' compensation adjusters. Our goal is to bring interesting topics in the world of claims adjusting to people who are working as an adjuster now and to people who are considering a career as a claims adjuster.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, Chantel, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. The sun is shining, but it's freezing cold and the wind is blowing and it's miserable. The snow on the ground is driving me crazy. I want to go to Florida or Arizona or something.
Okay, so speaking of Florida, our guest today, Heather Blevins, just told me off air that she is going to Florida. What is it, next week? So, and she's in Illinois, so she
Oh,
is
okay.
up north too.
Yeah.
We have gray and cloudy weather today. What about you, Heather? We always talk about weather.
It is the cold gray bucket of suck of Illinois right
Mhm.
now. We are deep in the heart of it at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to introduce, like I said, our guest today is Heather Blevins. She's a CPCU. She's an insurance training professional, which is an ITP. She is, you have a master's in education, which I think is great. Word collector, also fun. And she is known as the Insurance Rebel, which if you're looking on YouTube, you can see her. She's identified herself as the Insurance Rebel. And she wants to inspire you to believe in your power to be a powerful agent of change while creating an environment where it's safe to disagree and challenge the status quo, which I really think we need now. I don't feel like we know how to respectfully challenge one another. So I love that about you. Heather, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely just overjoyed to be with you, Chantel and Bill, here on this Friday morning, and can't wait to talk about all the things that we're going to talk about today.
Yes. And as Bill pointed out, if you're watching on YouTube, you're in outer space because you are always on the go. I mean, always on the go. Can't keep you down. And like we said, you're going to be in Florida very, very shortly. Let's start off, though, with the reason why I brought you here. By the way, guys, happy Valentine's Day. This is going to be airing on the 13th of February, right before our Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's. And I wanted to play a video, a LinkedIn video that Heather had done a couple of weeks ago, where Heather had talked about the 4 pillars of resilience. And this is part of your Wednesday Words with the Rebel series. So I'm going to play it right now, and then we'll come right back to it.
Well, it's time again for Wednesday Words with the Rebel. And the word I'm going to be talking about for a while, and I've been really focusing on and doing a lot of research about, is resilience. And especially how the insurance claims industry really builds that superpower skill of resilience as you work with people in some of the toughest circumstances of their lives. The American Psychological Association actually defines like 4 qualities, 4 skill sets that you really need to have in order to become a resilient person. And those 4 things are connection, healthy thinking, wellness, and meaning in your life. So this week, I'm going to talk a little bit about connection. And I'll tell you, going back to my days working in the claims industry, the connections that I made with people in the insurance industry were so incredibly important to me. They are some of the most important connections that I still have today in my network, in my professional network, in my personal network. It's the people that we make those connections with that really matter to us. So my encouragement to all of you out there who are working in some pretty tough circumstances with all the catastrophic events that are unfolding across the United States, the wildfires in California, the mass cold event across the United States, which I know is creating a huge claim volume. And I don't know, snow in Louisiana and Florida kind of blowing all of our minds with how things are changing and how much they impact all those claims professionals out there trying to help people to recover from tough circumstances. Build those connections. build those same networks that I built when I worked in the insurance claims industry. They are important to you. That sense of connection is one of those bedrock foundation pillars that you need in order to become a resilient person. So that's about all I got to say for this Wednesday. Rebel out.
So, Heather, you were talking about one of the pillars being connection, and it really kind of spoke to me. I thought it would be perfect for today, since tomorrow's Valentine's Day. And we as adjusters kind of had to show ourselves love sometimes. So, why are connections important?
The reality is, Chantel, Bill, claims adjusting is the toughest job in insurance. I did it for many years of my insurance career. I haven't been in the claims world for a while, but I know that the people that work in that piece of the insurance ecosystem are dealing with things flying at them from every single direction all the time. And it's very easy to become isolated and overwhelmed in the job role. And I've seen it countless numbers of times where claims adjusters are they're just in the zone, right? Gotta keep the head down, gotta keep the work going, and not realizing that when you isolate yourself and you don't really put yourself in a place to make those connections with other people to build that network, it's not healthy for you. And I experienced that, I would say, ebb and flow of that during my career as a claims adjuster. But I was also in an environment where I was surrounded by other people who were just the same way, heads down as well. And my encouragement for every claims professional today is that you have to continuously work on your ability to be able to put yourself out there and be vulnerable enough to meet other people and build accountability networks for each other to lift each other up as you do that hardest job in insurance.
I would agree 100%. But the job's not that hard. I used to have hair, so that's something to be said about that, I guess. But reaching out to not just to get help from a technical standpoint, which is, something you should do on a regular basis as well, but just to have people to talk things through to make sure you're not, if you're questioning your judgments, have somebody else at the other side that's saying, yeah, you're kind of wrong there, or you are right. Either way, it can be a huge help to your confidence and get you through a day.
Yeah, I totally think that having these silos, and I think it's kind of increased with the fact that we are working from home a lot of times where we don't have these people that we can turn to. But I remember what you're talking about, Heather, where I was in an office and the bullets were flying overhead, so to speak, and you're just trying to put out fires left and right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I think whenever you're operating in that world as a claims professional, and obviously, every job role in claims can be very, very different. There's people who work in office environments, there's people who work in those field environments where they're facing customers day in and day out. But the reality is you're dealing with people who are coming at you not on their very best day of their life, right? When you talk about the policyholders and the customers that you work with. And it's very, very easy to start to absorb some of that trauma that's associated with people who've either lost everything in their life, they've suffered some major catastrophic loss where they were involved in an accident and people died. You just like law enforcement professionals, military professionals, doctors and nurses and social workers, claims adjusters don't meet people on their very best day of their life. And so those interactions oftentimes are heated and people get frustrated because let's face it, folks, insurance is really complicated. Okay. You got this policy that people think is just there for absolutely everything. And you have to explain the nuances of something that's a contract with people that they don't really understand what they're buying when they buy. And on top of that, there is just this compounded stress of dealing with repetitive people who are going through the worst day of their life. And that concept is vicarious trauma. We talk about it in a lot of different industries, but we don't talk about it in how it impacts claims professionals. There's not a lot of people out there that have been talking about that. And I got on, I'd say, not got on any wagons, but I got on this train when I started seeing that, the impacts of that in myself and in some of the other professionals that I was working with in a particular claims environment at one time. It was, and I'll tell you a quick story about this. I went into bodily injury claims handling environment at one point. I was surrounded by a lot of people that I had worked with for many, many years on different sides of a company and everything. And I went to them and I said, look, I said, I know we deal with traumatic brain injuries and people dying in car accidents pretty regularly just because the jurisdictions we're working with and like we got the worst of the worst claims, right? And I said, how do you manage, like, emotionally, how do you manage dealing with the stress of that coming at you every single day and dealing with those types of claims? And they go, well, you know what? Those types of claims are the easiest claims to deal with. And my eyes kind of popped open. I said, did you really understand the question that I was asking?
My eyes just went wide. I know you can't see that on the radio or your earbuds, wherever you're listening, but my eyes just went wide. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, they said it's the easiest claims to deal with. And I said, well, help me understand what you mean by that. And they said, well, most of the time you're just going to pay policy limits and move on. And technically, I get it. Like, technically, they are accurate about that, right? But I also sensed that because of the volume and because of the stress of the job, that it was almost like there was this numbness in some people that I'd known for years because the time to give the compassion that they needed to give to that circumstance was too much for them personally.
Yeah,
You know?
you can't you don't have a well deep enough for
Yeah.
all the motion you need to do that. So what it becomes is an administrative task to
Yeah.
work through the facts and just say, okay, this is what happened. Here's the result. Here's the financial impact. Put it all together in a story that makes sense so that you can get the thing resolved. And I mean, yeah, it's hard, but there are people that deal with the trauma of actually seeing these things right after they happen, like first responders, the things that people in hospitals, the things that they have to see and take home with them are pretty traumatic as well. So I would agree with the person that responded to you and say, these are the easier ones to handle because they do become more of an administrative thing. You're not and the smaller ones tend to be the biggest pain in the butt um, because they're usually they're more vocal about it. For offender, the rule was always in auto claims if it was a fender bender of like a $1,500 damages. Those are the worst claims in the world to handle because that person's on the phone every hour looking for answers and looking for results versus TBI, where you've got somebody that's in the hospital for 8 days and then back into recovery. It happened. It's bad. It's a long recovery. It's a lot of documentation to obtain and review. And like I said, it becomes this administrative thing where you do get emotionally detached occasionally, not occasionally, but on every severe case, you can't help but have some sort of feelings for, the folks that are involved and empathy for them. And you certainly need to project that when you're dealing with their families or even their attorney. That's just being a decent human being. But I can kind of agree with what they had said as those being kind of the easier ones. And I think it's because that there's no direct stress on you in many cases. You're not getting people hammering your phone every day on those
Well,
claims.
I know I hear what you're saying, Bill, and I hear what Heather is saying, but the fun thing about Bill and me is that we always, well, we don't always, we tend to disagree. And I kind of like that because I hear what Heather is saying, and I think it's the cumulative fact that we are always in that kind of environment. Yes, it's the easiest administrative to pay because you just pay policy limits and move on. There is that cumulative, I think, trauma or whatever. And we even had Brandon, who is our OG listener, uh, followed us over, one of our 6 listeners, and he came on the podcast to talk about how going to adjuster meetings, like I am a member of the Greater Kansas City Claims Association, CPCU. I know you're a member of CPCU, and you do the Insights, the magazine, and so you're interacting with people that way too, and how that keeps them grounded. And that's kind of like what you are talking about as well. And I know that when you had posted the video, I teasingly posted, "Oh, well, you say that there's 4 pillars and then only tell me one of them. You got to tell me what the other 3 are. Come on now." So what are the other 3?
Yeah, the other 3 pillars are wellness, healthy thinking, and a sense of meaning and purpose. And those 3, I haven't had, I'm going to be addressing all of these in my weekly video on LinkedIn, but I can tell you, for me personally, the wellness and healthy thinking one, like I've been a little bit on the struggle bus with coming across not saying, because I feel like I'm pointing a lot of fingers at myself whenever I start talking about that, because I'm someone who's go, 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 go. I'm the Energizer Bunny. I run against the wall and then I fall over. Okay. And I don't know how many other claims professionals are like that, but I think the nature of the job, whenever you are a claims professional, pushes you into that mindset of just go, 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 and then you're going to jump and then you're going to fall over. And then there's some adoption of unhealthy habits that happens a lot of times, especially for claims professionals who are traveling around the countryside. You're living in hotels, you're eating fast food, or you're eating junk all the time because you're on the road and you're trying to get to the next thing that you have to do. And for me, I'm like, I need to reground myself in this idea of you have to take care of yourself. And for claims professionals, you have to take care of yourself because you are taking care of other people in some of the worst circumstances of their life. And you can't pour from the empty cup.
Right. It's kind of like what I always say, like the airlines, they say, put your mask on first
Yeah.
before you do your kids. And I think what we were just talking about, even with Bill and me doing our normal disagreement that we normally do, which actually is what makes, I think, the podcast interesting. And sometimes we take contrary positions just to take contrary positions, but I think that goes
No, we
back to,
don't.
yes, we do. I think that is what we're talking about with the wellness and that what you're talking about with the mental health and that sort of thing, because I think it all really blends in together, doesn't it? I remember you were talking about your kind of war story. I had a war story, and I sit there and I think to myself, Chantel, this is not a big deal. But I remember when Katrina hit, and we were getting, I don't know, 100 claims a day or something like that, and not individually, of course, but the phone would never stop ringing from 8 to 5, and so it was a high stress situation. And you're talking to all of those insureds who have lost everything, the levees have broken, all of this sort of thing. And for a week, I had dreams about flooding and drowning. And I sit there and go, how can I, as the adjuster up in Arkansas, hundreds of miles away from Louisiana, say that I'm in the same position as these people in New Orleans who have lost everything? Who am I to say that I'm as bad off as they are? But it's like what you said, I can't pour from that empty cup. So, I'm not ashamed to say that I had to go seek a little bit of therapy and talk that through. to where I was able to help them out because I had to help me first.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to normalize the idea that it's okay to say you're not okay.
Absolutely.
And
Uh,
just so everybody knows, this isn't a bad job. You should come into the
Mm.
claims industry. It's a lot of fun otherwise.
You know me, you know me. I am trying to get more people. I tell people every day, this is the best job in insurance. This is by far, being an adjuster is the best. Absolutely. Now we're showing you the dirty underbelly of a job that your, I guess your job interview will never tell you about, which is fine. Every job has that. Like you said, Bill, the medics, the first responders, they have a lot of trauma, probably more trauma than we do.
Oh, I'll
You
bet.
know, but let's be honest with one another. Let's be transparent. And I think that's what Heather is doing. And I absolutely love that idea. And I'm wondering if that is where you got the idea of being like an insurance rebel, because it is kind of a rebel-like idea of showing not necessarily the underbelly and the badness of being an insurance adjuster, blah, but it's different.
no, it's just about insurance and not to give a commentary about insurance. Insurance has a transparency issue. Okay. Like that's public perception,
Yeah.
obviously, a lot and fed by a lot of different factors. But I think you have to talk about the realities of what the job role is. And then also counterbalance that out with, okay, here's how you can be a resilient claims professional. Here's the things that you need to do. And so, yes, educating people and helping them to understand so that they can recognize, have awareness, okay, recognize when these types of emotions, feelings, behaviors, and actions are coming into their own life, they can reset their own attitude towards that and connect with the people that they need to connect with in order to do that. Take that action to let's write your life, just like you did, Chantel, when you had to reach out and say, hey, this doesn't feel right, you know? And I think it's more of like a calling to serve a community of people that I see a lot of times live in the dregs of what the insurance ecosystem is, right? You're delivering this product that someone sold to someone. The magic, I always called it the magic of insurance, was the claims profession. There's a calling to serve the people that you have to deliver that to, but also making sure that you're ready, you're able, you're at the moment to be able to do that in a way that's compassionate and empathetic and helping them to understand you're a human being in this process who's going to guide another human being through that process.
I would encourage you to always look for the things about the job that you do love, because it's probably different for some people than others, but whatever it is, whether you like helping people, for me, it's just curiosity. I like to go see how things happened, what happened, and what the results are. Whatever it is for you, make sure you identify that, and even if you post it on your wall, just to remind you of why you're doing this job. Because a lot of people who find that this is not a career for them, they just can't see anything good about the job, and I feel bad for them because it is an interesting career, and I've been doing it for a very long time, and I would recommend it. But if you can't see why you're doing it to begin with, then all this other stuff is going to probably push you out of the job pretty quick.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I tell my students when I'm talking to them in class that, again, being an adjuster is the best job. And the upcoming generations, they really want to help people. And I say, do you know who helps people? That's the claims adjusters. And
Mhm.
it's like what Heather says. On your worst day, we're meeting people on their worst day. Their house is burned down. They've been in an auto accident. Goodness forbid someone died in the house fire or the auto accident or what have you. But worst day, and we are coming in as the promise keepers of that policy, as someone who can help them. And that's what I like as well as kind of solving the mystery of how it happens and how it fits into the policy. I do think of it as being kind of like a mystery, and I like that. That's what I find interesting. So helping people and solving the mystery, so to speak.
And what Bill was talking about there is that fourth pillar
Oh,
of resilience. Find the thing, right? Find the thing that gets you jazzed about being a claims professional. And for me, I can tell you it was all about those connections that I made with other people, not just that community of people that I was surrounded with, that we were working in those hard circumstances together, but also just that sense of connection of I met another human in a place in their life, and I was able to guide them through something that was really complicated and solve the puzzle and solve the challenge and help them to solve the challenge, but to also make it where they know why I'm there and not just to click off on some administrative tasks that are associated with the claim. Do I still have to do that? Yes. That's the part of the job that a lot of people don't like. That's the sense of disconnect as well. And I think there's a motto out there about keeping insurance human. I mean, we all talk about all the tech and everything that's coming into the industry right now and how it's going to evolve, and like you won't even talk to a human being in insurance anymore. I'm like, no, folks, really, we're dealing with folks in like human circumstances. You have to have a human connection with other people, whatever that means and whatever circumstance that is. And also just the idea of listening to people and hearing where they are and then helping them to understand that, yeah, right now it's not okay, but I can tell you it's going to be okay. And even in those circumstances where I had to say, I'm sorry, there's really not a lot that I can do, I could still deliver that message with compassion and understanding and empathy and help them to understand the why of what I was doing. And I think those were the things, that was my sense of meaning. That was my sense of purpose in working in the claims profession. And I can't, you said it really great, Bill. Like, find the thing that gets you jazzed, that gets you excited about being a claims professional. That's your sense of meaning. That's your sense of purpose.
Yep.
I love that. And what you were talking about, Heather, with the, knowing and being able to explain the why as to why something may or may not be covered. I was talking on LinkedIn. I think I commented on one of Bill Wilson, the very knowledgeable Bill Wilson's post, and a guy had said that he, for better or for worse, had or chooses insurance based off of the way that they portray their claims people in the commercial. And I said, yeah, but even then, because Bill was complaining that we really need to educate people instead of hire, funny mascots or what have
Yeah.
you. And I totally agree with him about that. And I said, but the problem is, even with this idea of showing the claims people, that is still wrong, because I linked a particular insurer that I'm not going to name here, and it shows this commercial of where the claims adjusters are saying, "Oh, your claim is automatically paid. We're sending the check now, blah, blah, blah." And I said, even that tends to send the wrong message, that again, to the insured, all of your claims are going to be covered. And that is not necessarily true. And I had written that in the response, and the guy said, but isn't that what cheap insurance is? And I said, no, not necessarily, and it's all about that education. And there are ways for us as an industry, and you said it, Heather, we're terrible at educating people, is letting them know politely and educating them so that they get the right coverage. I actually had a friend who said, I have never heard you say, where people could go and what they can do with themselves once they were there, so politely, where they thank you for saying that. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah, but that's what you have to do when you're educating the insured. It's like, this isn't covered. This is the reason why. And hey, why don't we talk to your agent about that to get it covered or whatever, if that's what you need.
Definitely. You're often the bearer of not great news in claim situations, right? A coverage limit or a piece of the policy that says that something's excluded. And just helping, again, by and large, we know we're not very good at telling the story of insurance, to the consumer public. There's a lot of people out there that are in the LinkedIn community and insurance influencers and people like that who are trying really hard to like change that perception of insurance and just being raw and real about what it means to consumers. And a lot of times I don't think we talk enough about, like, we're selling you something that we hope you never ever have to use, but if you do, we've got people here who are going to make sure that you get through that process.
And it
And
has to be human beings. You can't, I know AI is coming in and everything, but you can't have a system whereby people call in with problems and you've got, press one if you're sad, press two if you're frustrated. That's not going to work. Even if it is another AI generated voice that really sounds like it's almost a human being, people aren't going to buy it. It's going to come across as, probably as offensive to a lot of people. And it's not the way to go, industry, by the way. You should put some bodies in place that can actually answer questions with some intelligence for people and
Yeah,
empathy.
absolutely. And we're also talking, since we're talking humans, is that Heather, I like your videos because they also have a terrific sense of humor. And I wonder if you're using the videos, because there's another influencer out there that you had mentioned on LinkedIn, and she uses a lot of TikTok videos that she posts on LinkedIn. I love her. I want to have her on the podcast. And uh, I think she's trying to educate people, but also appeal to a younger audience. And I wonder if that's what you're trying to do with the videos.
yeah, I think for me, this was partially a personal challenge of I need to get out there and use the knowledge that I have had over the years and be able to open up people's eyes to something that I'm very passionate about. And that's taking care of the insurance claims community. But also, I think as an industry and as industry professionals, and I don't even sit in the industry anymore. I'm adjacent to the industry in my new job role. But I feel like all of us really have this duty to help people to like change their perception about what insurance is about. And especially with the negative news media cycle that has been going on of late, there's so much to push back against, but I think you have to be real, you have to be raw, you have to call the industry to the standard when people mess up, and you have to say, yeah, this was wrong, but it needs to get better. And here's how I think it needs to get better as well. And Bill, 100%, that requires human beings to be involved in the conversation. That requires people to put themselves out there and talk about things that aren't the easiest things to talk about, like claims professionals and the stress levels and the burnout and the things that happen to them. And then the other piece of me is like, I want to use these videos to help the claims industry to say, we're going to do something about this as a whole, as a collective. Because the reality is, insurance is facing mass retirements by 2028. What is it, like 450,000? They keep like throwing the numbers up there of how many people are going to be leaving the industry. They have, we've not done a good job in replacing the people count that is needed. And there are some with the mindset, okay, we can use AI to do this or that or the other. I am not anti, by the way, this is not a bashing AI, bashing technology discussion at all. I 100% believe that AI can be assistive in doing the rote and administrative work that will free up claims professionals and underwriters and all those other people to be able to be the humans they need to be in the industry, to make the complex decisions, to be able to focus on taking care of people in those circumstances. But 100%, we're in a crisis level right now in the industry. And the reality is, and I do a lot of talking about this, there are statistics out there. It's very hard to grab HR statistics for just the claims profession, but there are statistics out there that lead us to understand that 1 in 4 claims professionals are going to leave the industry in the next year. 1 out of 4, 25%. What does that say? Do we have a ready 25% number of people to come in and help and take care of those circumstances right now? No,
No,
no.
no,
And
we don't.
yeah, and then one of the number one reasons they're leaving, stress and burnout.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That is one of the things that I do talk about with my students, just to go off script, because we all know, because we've had guests before, and I've spilled the beans, or spilled the tea, as the kids nowadays are saying, is that I give her the questions. Bill and I give her the questions beforehand, so there's no gotchas or anything like that. But to go off script for just a second, you are absolutely correct. I talk to my students all the time and about, being an adjuster, and about the brain drain. And Nancy German, if you know Nancy German, she talks about this quite a bit. It is alarming. And I have looked up the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they are massively uninformed or informed about what an adjuster does, because while they say that an agent or broker, producer, underwriter, actuary, all of them need a college degree, they say that an adjuster does not. Okay, technically, maybe that's true, but do you know everything that we have to know? I mean, if we're going to be in property, we have to know how a house is built. We have to know physics, because we have to know how, a house falls down, or we have to know chemistry, but how a fire starts, and like you can't have three origins of a fire. That's going to be arson. Or if you get into auto, how does whiplash, I mean, that's physics again. And how do you build a car? You're going to have to know that. And it goes back to what Barton Keyes says in one of my favorite insurance movies, Double Indemnity. You have to be a father confessor, a judge and jury. You need to be a doctor to cut open these claim files and know their dirty little secrets, and all of that. It's a great scene. But yeah, to sit there and say that all these people are going to leave. And in fact, let's also, I'm going to get on my high horse again, say that the industry does a very bad job. While we have a couple of universities that have risk management and insurance degrees, 9 times out of 10, there is only a chapter on claims, not even a semester, on how to take claims. I think that should be mandatory, even for underwriters, even for agents. How do we adjust claims? Because Bill and I have talked about it before. My book, my risk management book, says there are 4 steps in the claims process. One of them is the first notice of claim, and the fourth one is settlement, or payment. Excuse me. They actually use the word payment of claims, and I'm like, oh, oh. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself now and take a walk around the block, and calm down.
Well, one thing to think about is that when that 25% of professionals walk out of the business, what are the insurance carriers? What's the industry going to do to reset? Like, what if tomorrow they just suddenly lost a quarter of their workforce? Will they have to rethink the way claims are handled? Are they going to have to kind of reinvent the wheel and come up with some new process to make sure that their claims are being handled the way they need to be? Or are they going to buck up here and start training people the way they need to be trained and treating people the way they need to be treated in the industry?
You asked a really hard question.
It's a rhetorical question.
And
Yeah.
it's one of those that hits me in my heart, because I also think about the 75% of the people who are left behind when those numbers start going out the door.
Right.
because what happens to their claim file loads? What happens to their stress levels? What happens to their ability to be resilient in the industry? It piles up, right? Because the claims don't go away. They don't magically disappear whenever somebody who has 100 cases walks out the door. What happens? Magic wheel, it gets spun out in between everybody else,
It
right?
Right.
does.
Right.
And it's
then
difficult.
and it's difficult, and those times are really hard. And I know the industry has gone through these fluxes where, we're gonna base our staffing upon historical catastrophe activity, and then we're gonna make decisions where we're gonna like slow down and or not hire to replace because we think we can do it, but yet there's not the technology to take away the claim load that's there. And I think that's also one of those issues that kind of feeds the burnout. And yes, this is kind of those hard conversation things that I think have to be had at the executive level of insurance so that you can open up the reality of like there is there's significant risk for the industry whenever you're not taking care of the claims professionals on the front lines and making sure that they know how to be resilient people, teaching them about that, helping them through coping through these types of things. And then also making sure that you have like plans whenever folks are rolling out the door to other industries. And then I also think like we as an industry need to take this on and say, we're not going to tell people anymore. And I credit Mike Caselny for this because he really changed my attitude about this. I always used to say I fell into insurance, right? I just stumbled into it, and here I am, 20 years later. I'm still doing it. What perception are we putting out to people who want to come to the industry when we say we kind of tripped and fell into a hole for the job that we have, right? Okay. We need to say insurance found me. And here's all the fantastic things that have happened in my life, the network, the connections, the knowledge that I now have that I never knew that I was going to know about. And then just the relationship base of the insurance industry and how connected it is. That's a big sell. I've been in that professor role, Chantel, as well. I've taught risk management and insurance programs. I certainly deviated from the text that was there and talked more about like here's the end result of what you all are learning about in this risk management process and everything and why it's so crucial. The saddest thing for me is that when you talk to a lot of people, a lot of students who are even in those types of programs, they're like, well, I'll take a job in claims so I can get into something else in insurance.
Okay, but I am okay with that because I think that we as an industry also teach our youngsters incorrectly. Because you said it, claims is the front facing where we keep the promise, we're dealing with the insured. That's the promise. The policy is the promise. And so I think we should actually be teaching claims and then work backwards. Like, oh, you've had a claim, it's been denied. And so what did you want to have covered? Oh, you wanted this covered? Well, then you need to have, I don't know, boat insurance or general liability or I don't know, whatever. And for us to teach it from the underwriting to the agent to the claims is, I think, backwards. And so my students, they actually hate me because we are in our commercial division right now where we're studying nothing but commercial insurance. And every single chapter we have, is this claim covered? And it starts off with, you know, of course, everybody knows I use The Incredibles as the examples. So this year or this semester, we're studying Syndrome and the evil villain. And I'm like, okay, so Syndrome has an evil lair. The volcano goes off. Let's talk about his contents. Is it going to be covered? We need to learn how to read the policy and work backwards. And it's just amazing that some of the students go, you know what? We just passed our broker exam and we didn't know about that vacancy, that 31% vacancy clause. And I'm like, see, now you need to know because Syndrome's going to get thrown in jail every once in a while. So the island is going to be vacant or unoccupied, quote unquote. So you as the broker need to be talking to Syndrome about blah, blah, blah. but you didn't know about it. But the claims people do, you know? And so, yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. I love this. I love what you're saying.
I'd like to swing back a little bit to AI again, and a comment that you made, Heather, about AI making the job easier or taking away some of the rote kind of things that we have to do in this business to allow us to be better at our jobs. And I think what the industry has to watch out for is decision makers seeing AI as a way to replace people rather than to make their job better and make their output better. I don't want to see, and I unfortunately do see a lot of products that seem to be designed to replace what the adjusters are doing. And I don't think that's a good idea at all. I think that's a huge I think it's a misconception, first of all. The people that are in the claims industry that are developing AI things, they get it. It's the people outside the industry that are making recommendations about automated phone systems and whatever. They're missing the mark. And I think that in the upper echelons of insurance carriers, you're going to probably have people in those leadership positions that maybe don't have a background in claims. And that could be dangerous because they're going to see this shiny new object and they're going to see some potential cost savings. And they could see it as the answer to that 25% drop in personnel. It's not. I mean, in a way, it might be helpful, but at the end of the day, you can't replace people with AI.
Yeah. There's quite a few insurance influencers that are standing up here cheering in the back right now, Bill, for what you say. The reality is that most technological changes that come in insurance don't start from the people. Okay. That's a change management thing. Here's my change management hat coming on
Yep.
right now,
Yep.
right? Okay. They start with tech because it's shiny and new, and they think about cost savings and all these wonderful things that this tech is going to be able to do. And then we don't think about the people that are at the center of that. And that's why I don't know how many percentage of it, I used to know that number, but the percentage of change efforts associated with technology actually fail. There's also another influencer out there that talks about working from the customer backwards. And while insurance is very customer focused, very like we're trying to figure out like the new way we need to get a product in front of people and all those types of things, we don't think about like the customer as the at the center of that whenever you're trying to innovate and trying to figure out how do you integrate technology and everything. So I think there has to be a huge mindset shift associated with that and realize that AI is a tool just like every other tool that's out there in the claims world, in the underwriting world, in the actuarial world. It's a tool. It's been around a lot longer than a lot of us want to talk about, but there are capabilities that can get unlocked with AI that will allow us to focus more on the humans that are working in insurance and really help them at the center of that conversation to be the best professionals that they can be. But you've got to think about it from the human side of it and that human data, human tech integration as well. And I think that's a huge mindset shift for an industry that is still pretty heavily legacy based, right? And trying to figure that out. And there's a lot of really, really smart people that I know that are working on that kind of stuff. That's not my wheelhouse. I'm happy to give my opinion and my philosophy any day about it, but I really hope some of them are successful because that, to me, this part of the insurance industry is so key to our ability to be able to continue to support and be the safety net, the financial safety net that insurance is to society today. Yeah.
Well put. Well said.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we need to engage in a different way than what our predecessors have been doing. And I know that this is one of the reasons for the podcast that Bill and I do. We started off during the pandemic with Clubhouse, but so many people today don't have time for formal study. And you kind of were talking about that, Heather, where people are feeling like in their silos, and management doesn't understand, and they're getting burned out, and that thing. And I see this so often where people don't want to do that formal study like the CPCU or whatever, and management, not having come from a claims background or whatever, they don't push it anymore, maybe because they're trying to cut cost or loss adjustment expenses or whatever. But you're a big proponent of it. You still are very big in the institutes by volunteering in your local chapter and being the publications chair, like I mentioned previously. So what are some of your, go-tos to get that designation, or to get that, I guess, continuing education if your license doesn't require it, or whatever, to keep that education going when life gets busy?
Tuning into podcasts is one of the things that I think people can do, because that's kind of a lot of times for people that can be some passive listening that you can, okay, well, I want to rewind and I want to listen to that piece of that again. The other piece is join professional organizations and be a part of them. They truly shape you in ways that you never even know. And again, to me, like, they're part of my resilience package as a person. I get a lot of purpose and meaning and connection, and keep my attitude in a good place because I'm getting to serve, I'm getting to give back, I'm getting to mentor, I'm getting to volunteer, I'm getting to share those things that I'm passionate about with a community of people who are not just like-minded, like you and Chantel, you and Bill, like, you kind of play off of each other all the time and you have different opinions and different attitudes about things. But it's a safe and healthy place to do all of that. And yes, does it require time? It does. But I tell you, we all wake up with the same 24 hours every single day. What are you doing with it to build resilience in yourself and the other people around you? And to me, like, one of the best ways to do that is giving back to the industry in the ways that we can when we've been around for a hot minute here, right? And yes, I want to do more than predecessors before me, because I want I want the next generation to see how cool and attractive and interesting and challenging and complex it is to be a claims professional, but also just an industry professional in general. And while you may not be somebody that wants to pursue those tough tests and the tough designations and gut it out for those types of things, that's okay. But that doesn't mean you can't be engaged with the community of people. Trust me, they'll probably get you on the wagon at some point, and they'll coach you through it, and they'll teach you, and they'll do some things to be able to do that. But it is good for you as a human to have those connections, those professional connections that go beyond even professional connections now. Like, some of my best friends right now are people that I have made relationships and connections and built this community of people from my professional organizations that I'm involved in right now. They make me a better human because I continuously learn from them. And I know that's hard if you're sitting as a claims professional and you're thinking, like, my gosh, how do I have the time to do that? 24 hours every day, same 24 hours. We all wake up with them. You just got to choose what you're going to do with it.
I agree, because I feel Bill is a good friend now. And I feel that when he and I are sitting here talking and bantering back and forth, it is rejuvenating. And when I go to the Greater Kansas City Claims Association, even if it's a social hour or if it's an educational event, it feels rejuvenating to me, even because I think we're all like-minded. And so we all feel the same pressures or whatever. And by the way, if you're an agent listening to this, which is welcome, there are agent ones, there are underwriting ones, there are accounting or actuarial groups, all of this kind of stuff. And so they last maybe an hour, hour and a half once a month, and that's not much. So I find that it rejuvenates me, quite frankly.
Plug in,
Yes.
That's a piece of resilience as well, is like it's easy to become really disconnected in the worlds we live in today, right? I mean, the three of us are sitting in three different locations talking like Brady Bunch on the screen right now. And it is to me, and I shared this in a subsequent connection LinkedIn. COVID changed me a lot. It kind of changed. I used to be super extroverted. I was like, whoa, there on the Myers-Briggs and all of that. And it maybe it's just because I'm getting older as well, but COVID kind of changed me. And I was like, I started to isolate myself because it was just easy to do that. Um, and I had to realize that I was kind of losing connection with people, and it was hurting, it was hurting me personally. I think COVID changed the world in that way. I know that doesn't make me unique just to talk about that, but that sense of intentional connection with other people shapes us into better people for tomorrow. And when you talk about people that are in that claims profession, you always need to be a better person than you were the day before in that job, because there's something new to learn. There's some new challenge that's in front of you. There's some difficult circumstance that you might have to deal with day in and day out. And so continuously striving to make that connection with other people so that you can be that better person the next day. That's what I encourage every claims professional to think about. Carve out the time that's necessary for that, because it'll be better for you as a person, but also better for everybody else whose lives you can pour into as well, because you have something to help someone with, especially in the job that you do.
And it helps your career. You're gonna wind up being better at your job, and it's gonna launch your career to new heights also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way to make it selfish, Bill. Good job.
Hey, I
I mean,
I was really I was really worried that this episode was gonna be so touchy-feely I wouldn't know what to say, um hey, I got through it. You
Yeah.
know, I
Being
have
touchy.
feelings too. I have
Yes.
I can be sad. I can be happy. That's good, right? To have feelings. So,
And we love you for it, Bill. We
oh,
do.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
You're gonna make my ears turn red.
Yeah. Oh. So we are almost out of time, Heather. I think we mentioned you're going to be in Florida soon speaking. Do you want to plug anything else that you're doing? Plug the Insurance Rebel, follow you on LinkedIn. What else?
yeah,
Any kind of social media?
absolutely. Going to be in Florida actually like next week, like probably before the podcast even gets released here right now, but I'm speaking on this particular topic, like building resilience in claims professionals. And I'll be speaking on that topic regularly over this year at various conference environments that are already booked out there. In addition to that, um, I'm also encouraging everyone, because I'm part of that Society of Insurance Trainers and Educators volunteer run organization board. We're planning a conference in Nashville this year, and it's our first conference since 2019. We have got stacked and racked with an amazing docket of speakers that are going to be out there for everybody to be able to engage with. And even if you're not an insurance learning professional, trust me, there's something for you in this conference environment. And folks, it's Nashville. Come on. It's amazing. It's like
Yeah.
the
Oh,
South Vegas. So come on out. That's April 2nd. And April 1st, we're doing a kind of a hybrid train the trainer program as well. If you haven't been through Train the Trainer, it's a fantastic program that can teach you how to be a better presenter in all kinds of environments too. So shout out to my friends. Also shout out to the National Association of Subrogation Professionals, who we're partnering with for like our kickoff conference to their conference that's going to be right after that as well. But thank you all for having me on. I could talk
Yeah.
all day about this topic. It's not too touchy-feely, Bill. We got into some good stuff too.
oh,
So
look at you. Bill launched out into outer space. Well, now maybe I should. I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm,
Join us in outer space, Chantel.
but I don't really want
Oh, you
to.
want to go to
I I, I
you
want
want
to
to
go
go to
to
the
Florida
Bahamas?
with where Heather's going to be because it's cold and yeah, it's cold, wet, and rainy over here in Kansas. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
Oh well.
anyway, Well, thank you so much, Heather. We do appreciate it.
Thanks, Heather.
And
Great talk.
I think we're going to have another guest actually in 2 weeks. I think it's going to be Fred Fisher, who is,
All right.
yeah. So I don't know that for sure, so don't quote me on it, guys. But yeah, I think it's going to be Fred Fisher. So anyway, super excited about that. So stick around.
Don't quote you. You know this is recorded, don't you?
Oh man, darn. I can edit it out. Ooh.
Sure.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on the Art of Adjusting podcast, where we talk about life as an insurance adjuster.
If you enjoyed this podcast or this episode, please give us 5 stars and a review. It does help the algorithm pick us up.
Hit that subscribe button real quick and tell all of your adjuster friends to check this out as well. For independent adjusting services, go to www.auton.claims. And for anyone interested in working as an independent liability adjuster, go to the Contact Us tab to join our roster.
In the meantime, you can contact me at theartofadjusting.com for consulting and training purposes.